Good morning, guys, and welcome to another tale from the hoodie. I'm wearing my QuickSilver hoodie. What is QuickSilver? Well, it's a surfwear clothing company. Quite popular. You probably heard of it. And that is because I grew up in Surf City, USA. Basically as a young teen and a young adult, and also launched into college from there. But those days were spent, on the beach, and it's such an embedded part of me that, I think I always long for the beach wherever I go, which is ironic seeing how I'm on the farm in the middle of Thailand. But the good thing is I can drive to the beach still, and some beautiful beaches here. But I really like this hoodie. It comforts me, I guess, with a lot of different kinds of memories. Mostly memories on the beach. And, I was one of those guys who always actually wore a sweatshirt in the summer. When I would go to the beach, I think in a previous video or a previous tale, I might have told you how I hated high school or didn't go to high school. Although I graduated. But, I spent years and years just going to the beach and sleeping there. And I'd go down and I'd dig a pit in the sand. My hand's still messed up. Actually, I sleep with it wrapped. But I'd use both arms and I'd dig like a turtle almost. I would dig a huge pit in the sand, and then I would lay in the sand in a nice little reclining bed after being in the water all morning. And I'd lay back there and I would just fall sound asleep. Not a care in the world. And even when I would go back and visit the beach, I would still do that. It was such a peaceful feeling being able to go and sleep on the beach. In the early days when I was a teen, ditching school, you get busted by the cops being out of school. But I soon realized, I think that's where I learned it. I realized that, they would just drive slow on the service road and they would look and they'd see out there on your towel or whatever. They'd stop and they'd go, or they'd go burp burp on the radio. Hey, come here. And I would just dig a pit and I would lay in it, and then visually you couldn't see me because it was just kind of a horizon shot, so that was pretty good. But so many things is, that's where I had most of my roommates, if I lived places. Most of the times that I got in trouble were probably on the beach growing up. Of course, it's called Huntington Beach, but it's known as Surf City, USA, because they always had the OP, Ocean Pacific Professional Surf Classic there every year. I think they still do, actually, or maybe now it's called something else, different kind of sponsor or something. But so many big events, and it's not the same now, though, that's for sure. All the buildings, everything's built up, it's all commercial now, so it's a bit different. But the beach remains the same. Huntington Beach is basically kind of a 1 mile stretch of beach. On the other end of it, it's State Beach, and on the other end of it, it's State Beach. And of course, I even later would get a job working on the beach. So that was great. I did a lot of things. That's where I started, becoming healthy, really. Started running all the time. I loved running, and then when I got into college, I'd run with my friends. I'd run these 10Ks and 5Ks and short distance, and I felt I was running pretty fast. I'd look at my times, some of my times on some 10Ks, and then I'd look at the state times, and I'd see that I was just a second or a second and a half away from one of the fastest, or the fastest person in the state. But of course, if you're a second away, that's probably like 1,000 people or something. But I loved running, and I might have mentioned it before in another video or something when I was talking, that when I was running, I felt, just kind of felt separated from everything, kind of like I did when I would sleep on the beach. And I was out in the desert, and that desert, that's a great thing about Huntington Beach, was that, you know, you could drive 2 hours or whatever, and you could be at the top of the mountain skiing, snow skiing, or you could drive another 2 hours, you'd be in the middle of the desert. So it was a great place to be located. And I was out in the desert with friends. We were camping and riding out there and stuff. And that's where I was hit by a drunk driver. Broke my legs. I think I told that story before. But the metal, when they reconstructed my leg, I'm not sure if I told that story, but I'll tell it anyway. My left leg was severely damaged at the plateau where the femur, your bigger bone, strikes the head of the tibia, your lower bone, and the fibula. And so that plateau on the tibia was shattered. And of course, you know, the first hospital I went to, they were like, "Oh, nothing's wrong with you." You know, they x-rayed me from head to toe, you know, all the way, this leg all the way up over the head and all the way back down. Nothing's wrong with you. And what? And so, you know, long story short, they did not x-ray, or they just didn't want me in there, I guess. Then, you know, my friends took me back. I spent the night at my other friend's house in massive pain with my leg swollen the size of a freaking watermelon all the way down. And then I went to another hospital in the morning, UC Irvine, and they said, "Oh yeah, your leg's broken in multiple places, or you know, you're gonna need surgery right away." And so, but of course later when I got the bill from the first hospital, it was like $6,000 or something. They conveniently left out the X-ray for this section, like of my knee, which was the broken part. And I thought that, well, that's pretty peculiar. So I wrote back to the director of emergency services at that hospital and said, "Hey, do you see anything unusual? By the way, here's an X-ray of my actual break in my leg. So unless you want to go to court, you know, you need to make this bill for $6,000 disappear." And they promptly did so. So you don't have to worry about that. But anyway, they put metal, and I don't know, you know, actually, I think I may even still have the metal. It was a metal plate that went up my shaft of the tibia and around the backside of it. It had these 3 lag bolts, you know, the kind that's shiny and then it has threads at the end. 3 lag bolts that went through the head, and then 2 more screws that went through the bottom along the shaft, and to hold it all together. And it was non-weight bearing for an obscene amount of time, 13 months or something like that. And but it devastated me because I was, you know, I considered myself healthy. I was running really fast during that time, and it basically took all that away from me. You know, the doctor, "You're never going to run again, that's for sure, and you probably won't ride a bike." And I was also mountain biking. I would mountain bike in different races, or I competed twice in the World Biathlon Championships, which is really just, I think it's 40 miles of riding, hill riding, with a 5K on either end, or 10K on either end, I forget now. But anyway, I really enjoyed that, and to have that taken away was crippling. But I really think doctors take a class on how to tell you the worst case scenarios or something. And so it elicits that fight or flight response in you or whatever. Because that didn't stop me. I had never run long distance, but when the cast came off and everything was done with my leg, like I say, about 13 months, you know, I started to go outside and feel like, oh, I could move around. Of course, my left leg at that time was like a pencil from atrophy when the muscles get smaller. And I didn't feel really good about that. I started to shuffle a little bit. I started to run. You know, I tried to jog a little bit on the sidewalk and stuff like that. And then in my mind, I was thinking that somehow maybe the metal was going to go pow and bounce out of my leg or something, break out of my leg or something like that. Even though I knew that was probably not possible, but in my mind, it was, whatever, playing tricks on me. I just didn't like it. So I decided to go back to the hospital and ask them, can you take the metal out? Of course, mind you, it's been over a year now. Actually, it was just maybe even only 1 or 2 months after the cast came off and stuff that I asked. So we're talking about less than a year and a half after they put the metal in there. I asked to take the metal out, and they were like, "Well, we were thinking maybe it would stay in there the rest of your life because And I'm all, I know, and by that time I was also in college and I was studying, sports medicine, athletic training, and so I knew a little bit about orthopedics and certainly about bones and injuries and how they heal and stuff like that. And I was young enough that I figured, well, hey man, what's worse could happen? You're going to remove the hardware. I mean, the bone is already healed basically. You remove the hardware, marrow will fill in the holes where the screws were or whatever, and again, you'll calcify the outside, and it should heal. If I'm strong and healthy, it should heal good too. But their worry was that over time, as my femur continued to strike the head of the tibia, that it would break down in the area where the fractures were, and then this part would maybe, half of the tibia would start to fall down, and then I'd have this limp and I'd walk with a cane or whatever. But I'm already old and I'm not walking with a cane, and I did have it removed. So anyway, I asked them, can you remove it? And they're like, well, yeah, we can. And so I signed up and got the outpatient surgery, and then I took like I said, I was already studying sports medicine in college, and I actually had a term paper or a final project or something coming up there where I was going to submit the whole process of me having a removal. So it was something like, the title was something like the hardware removal of left lateral tibial plateau fracture reconstruction or something like that. And so back then, of course, we didn't have email or, I don't even think we had computers. No, we had some computers. Yeah, they had the little Macs, the first Macs that came out. And of course, you had IBMs, but no graphics and all that good stuff. I think later in my last year of college or something, they got the Mac 2 or the Mac with the pizza box. But anyway, I took my camera. I had a Nikon 35mm, kind of basic, nice camera back then, and brought it with me to the hospital. And same doctor, one of the same doctors that operated on me, also was going to be the guy to take the hardware out. And so I asked them. Of course, they come in, before surgery. They come in, they tell you what they're going to do, what their plan is, and yeah, we're going to do this. It's like it'll take this long, and if this happens, well, we'll go this way, and blah blah blah. And I was like, yeah. And I go, hey, listen, and they knew I was actually a runner before, and they knew that I was, studying sports medicine and stuff, and so I said, hey, listen, I'm doing this term project, and I was thinking maybe you could take a couple pictures for me during the surgery, so I can add them to my, to my project presentation. And the guy said, oh yeah, sure, no problem. Just let me know when you get in there with the camera and something. All right. So, and they gave me a local anesthetic again. This is where you just, it's like 6 pins or whatever, and needles or whatever, and they pop it into the back of your spine in the lower lumbar section, like L4 or something, and then it just numbs you from the waist down. So I was awake through the surgery. They just put the sheet up here, where I can't see, but they don't worry about me seeing. They worry about germs getting into that area. So anyway, I gave him the camera, and the guy goes, all right. And I go, yeah, you just all set up. You just gotta, you can just point and shoot. You just click the picture. He's all right. And so, I see him move around, take a few pictures stuff, and the bolts that were in my leg have a hex head, right? So they actually have a surgical drill, surgical screwdrivers and chisels and everything. They would just, back it out, Of course, it's been in there for over a year, so it's, it's growed in there, so they have to kind of destroy some of the bone marrow as they pull it out. And then one of the hex heads stripped on the bolt, and so he leans over the screen thing. He goes, "Hey Greg, we're having a little bit of a problem. This thing's stripped, so we're gonna have to kind of try and hammer it out of there a little, tap it out. So you might feel tugging on your leg." And I'm like, "All right, I don't care." And so and then they went at it. I mean, he even had a surgical hammer, surgical mallet. I don't know what it's called, but man, they were like, it's kind of like they put a chisel up against the head of that thing, and we're going bam, 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 bam. I mean, they hit it like, I don't know, it was a good 8 or 10 times. And it, it just ripped it, all the threads that had grown in there, they had to pull that right out. And I thought, oh my God, you're gonna fracture my bone again or something. But anyway, they got it out, and then, wrapped it up. And then when I got the film developed, of course it was actual film back then. When I got the film developed, I saw what was probably some of the first selfies, because the doctor was going, taking pictures of himself, going, oh, like this, having fun with it. And we took pictures of the surgery, and for the longest time I had that. I kept that file. I kept some of my records from college anyway, because you like the things, you like to go back and look at what I wrote, because we did a lot of writing, and look at my writings and what reports I did for sports and all this other stuff. And I still have that somewhere, maybe I can show it. And so he got all wrapped up. He goes, "It went well, it's good, okay, good luck with it, whatever." So I went home, outpatient. So you go in the morning, get it taken care of, and I was home in the afternoon. And then actually, I think I was home early in the afternoon. But then I remembered that that day, and we lived right up the street from the beach, that it was street sweeper day. So the street sweeper would come in, and if your car was parked on that side of the road, well, you're gonna get a ticket. And my roommates weren't home. I had a Volkswagen Beetle at the time. It was a standard shift or manual shift, and so I had to move my car. And I had just gotten back from the surgery. I'm like, oh shit. So I got up and I got in the car, and I had to push the clutch in with that foot, right? And I found out that hey, it actually worked. I could do it. So I pushed the clutch in and I drove. I think I wound up, first time I guess got to drive. So I in a year or whatever, in 3 months or something. So I drove around and then parked the car, and I was like, oh, I felt good. So then I started walking more. And I started walking a little faster. I started running a little faster, because I felt like, the metal was gone. It was inhibiting me. And it's kind of almost like this, the metal that's in this wound that I have here, I want it out. I go next Tuesday. By the way, my stitches are dried up too. I've taken these 2 off. And I go next Tuesday. Hopefully he takes it out on Tuesday. And maybe even some of these stitches. But I felt that inhibited me, it kind of slowed me down. But then, because I felt like I could run again, it was kind of like that Forrest Gump moment, right, where you just keep running. And I would keep going and keep going and keep going. And I had never ran that fast. Of course, it was more like a jog, but I'd run faster and faster and faster, or farther and farther and farther, and ultimately running even longer than a marathon. There were days where I would run, I'd take off in the morning. Woo! That was a firecracker to send the neighbor's dog running. I know you don't might like it, but these are the vicious dogs that come from the field trying to eat my cats and my other dogs. Anyway, oh, sorry, come here. Scares him though. So I would just keep running. And then what happened was I felt like I could run farther, so I signed up for my first marathon, which is the Long Beach Marathon. And so this was going to be exactly 3 months after the surgery, you know, to remove the hardware. So 3 months, and I ran the marathon, and I finished the marathon, no problems during the race. Although I kept a slow pace, I was still a little bit concerned, but you know, I felt good. I finished in like 3 hours and I don't know, 50 minutes or something like that. And you know, when you finish a marathon, it doesn't matter what marathon you finish, they give you a medal, like a finisher medal or whatever, you know, feel good medal. Everybody gets a trophy. But it's just a memento of that event, you know, which is cool. But what I did was I took that medal and I went back to UCI Medical Center where I had my surgery done, where the doctors told me that I would never run again or ride a bike with any great strength and stuff like that. And I went to that doctor, the one who actually told me that, and he wasn't in his office, but his nurse was there, and so I told her that I wanted the doctor to have this because I just finished the marathon, and she was all excited. She got a lot of teary-eyed and shit, and so I said, no, that's nothing. I'm just, you know, I'm nobody. I just wanted him to know that that he was wrong, and I don't know if maybe he had to tell me that or whatever, but I want to show him that I did good. And she says, oh, that's so great, that's so great. She goes, hey, are you busy right now? And I'm like, no. And she's all, because I need to go down to the children's orthopedic ward, and there's so many kids down there, and they would probably really like to hear your story, and you can give them some encouragement and stuff. And I thought, well, hey, sure, you know. I mean, I was in college and, you know, always doing presentations and stuff, and I was like, yeah, sure. So we went down there, and these kids were like kids who fell off their bike and broke their arm or broke their leg or got hit by a car and broke their legs and stuff, and a lot of fractures, or, you know, God forbid, you know, they got hit with a bat from their parents or something like that and broke. So there's a lot of wide spectrum of kids down there. I couldn't believe how many were in there. It was like 40 kids or something in this whole ward of broken bones. I was like, hey, I walked through the guys, and I just kind of meet and greet some of the kids and that, and then told them, hey man, you know, chill. I was in shorts, so I was like, hey, look at my scars, you know, yeah, that me too, you know, and you can do it though. Don't be afraid, you know, don't be afraid of that bicycle. Get back on. And I gave him that little speech and stuff, and then. But that was, you know, that also made me feel good. It kind of inspired me also to keep doing what I was doing, keep running. And when I found out that I could run farther than the 26 miles in a marathon, you know, I'd run 40 miles or whatever, I felt, you know, I felt accomplished, and that was part of the deal. But it was all because, you know, I think because of my environment growing up on the beach there. The beach, remember, most all beaches, certainly in a big country, is a long straight road, and that's going to be your coast highway or your beach road or whatever. Ours is Pacific Coast Highway, PCH. And I could just run one way, keep on running as far as I could. And usually I would run until I was tired, and I would turn around and run the whole way back. It was about 20 miles from my city, from my house to my college, and I'm not sure if I ever ran that distance, but I know I rode my bike to college a lot, you know, up and back, until I got an apartment up by college. But it was really good, and I continued to run and continue to run marathons and continued to enjoy my life in that regard. And then when I finished college, I took off overseas, of course, for my career. And I remember when I got my job on Saipan, on the island of Saipan, one of the first things I did, because I was still running, was I ran around the island. And I mean, they didn't have a road that went to the edges of everything, but I think it was at least a marathon, if I remember, from the front intersection of my school all the way down, up over the mountain in the back, and all the way back around. And I think it was almost exactly a marathon. That was fun. But then, you know, the islands are kind of like laid-back places. So I started laying back, and I think drinking a few beers or whatever, and I think that's when I actually didn't run so much. And frankly, probably when I stopped running. So I don't really run anymore. But during my running years, it was awesome. But you know, I felt like it was an awesome recovery, and I pulled it off, and it didn't impact my life negatively from the accident. It was a positive influence because I chose to make it that way. And it's probably hopefully going to be the same with my hand. I can take this out and get my finger back to where I need it to be. I can actually bend these more, you know, so this is good. And then life will go on. Although we're older, so as an older individual, I understand through experience that it takes longer to heal. You know, I'm not that young kid anymore, so it's not going to heal right away. But I am healthy. I don't have any health issues. Although I have lost considerable weight. That's a little bit of concern now, because I lost probably at least 20 pounds now since I have been in Thailand. But you know, in California, truly, you know, hanging out and at my house every day, I was just eating like a king and gaining weight, you know. So I was probably 185, maybe 189 at the tops back there. And I just weighed myself when I got my bandage changed, and I was coming in at like 169 or 165, so I don't know, maybe it's closer to 30 pounds. So I'm gonna have to watch that. This part of my arm, I noticed, I don't know if it's because of my accident or what, but I noticed this is soft. I don't know, it's like, what happened to my nerve right there? What happened? I thought maybe it was nerve damage, but so I'm starting to think that it's not nerve damage, that it's really just old damage from being old. So we'll have to see how that goes once I start to work again. Alright guys, well, that was my tale from the Hoodie. QuickSilver, Huntington Beach. Just one of the many surf shops there. By the way, QuickSilver also had a distribution center in, actually it was Costa Mesa, which is just up the hill from Huntington Beach, but that whole area was there. And we used to go to the distribution center because we knew somebody's mom, I think, worked there. And they would have what they call seconds, right? Like a hoodie that maybe when they were sewing it, it got a double stitch or something like that, so they couldn't really sell it. So they had these hanging on a rack in like part of the lobby area or whatever, or maybe even inside the distribution part of the factory. And we would go there, and she would bring us in there, and then you could pick clothes off the second rack. And I don't think we ever paid for anything, but we could just take hoodies and shirts and shorts, you know, swim shorts and stuff off of the QuickSilver rack. That was pretty cool. We also did that with Oro wheat bread. I think, if I remember, we knew somebody's mom that worked in the bread distribution place, and we could go in there and get free Oro wheat bread. Alright you guys, hope you enjoyed that. Catch you in the next episode of Tales from the Hoodie. Back at you.